Now, what's the story, ladies and gentlemen, of the Emperor's New Thrones? So many.
When you're on the spot,
Yeah, I know.
They go right out of your mind. I just keep all I can think of is a penguin. That's what I've got the penguin on the chair, and I know it's not right.
Ming, the Merciless.
Ming the Merciless.
I'm pretty sure was an emperor.
He was.
Was Jabba the Hutt an emperor?
Let's stay on Earth, can we? Just please. All right, so
Was he, though?
it's not Europe. It's not Europe.
Not Europe.
The.
Africa. Asia.
Yes, Africa.
Africa.
Ethiopia?
Ethiopia is the right answer.
Yeah, it was...
Haile Selassie.
Now, before Haile Selassie, there was an emperor...
Lowly Selassie.
Oh, very good. No, Emperor Menelik.
Oh, OK.
Possibly Menelik.
Is that him?
Yes, that's Menelik.
Wow.
Fine-looking gentleman. He lived from 1844 to 1913. But around about the 1890s, he was showing some people around Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, stroke Abyssinia, as it was known. And,
Well, he's emperor and tour guide.
yes, he seems to have been. These were rather august visitors. And they noticed men dead hanging from trees. And they said, look, come on, have you not heard of this wonderful new invention? The electric chair. It's humane, it's quick. And he said, I shall order 2 of them. There was one tiny drawback.
There's no electricity.
There was no electricity supply at all in the entire
He had to
country.
pedal really.
Did they execute people using only static?
With a rubber comb against their pullover.
Quite petty theft.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Is it me getting older that I can't get out of a car or go to a lift or touch a tap in a hotel room without getting an electric shock?
That
It'd
means
be
you're
great
very
if it was,
passionate.
as you get older, you become more metallic. Your bones turn to mercury or something, and you just kind of, maybe like an X-Men thing. You finally get your superpower.
Maybe I'm
just
turning
before you
into
die.
Ian McKellen, which I've long wanted to do.
But some people say it's because of passion, like when you meet, you know, the man, the woman of your dreams, you have an electric shock.
Like Van de Graaff generators.
Sometimes if I meet an attractive woman, I will taser her.
Well, there we are, you see, so... But we still haven't quite answered the question yet.
He used them as thrones.
He used one of them, anyway, as a throne.
Did he stop becoming emperor when electricity finally came to Addis Ababa?
And when they eventually brought it, they go, big news, hope you're sitting down. No, wrong thing to say.
Now to some other handy hints for travellers. Fill in the blanks from these 19th century travel guides, all right? Firstly, never rub your eyes except with your...
Frog.
Frog.
Other eye?
Other eye. It's a handbook for travellers in Spain by Richard Ford in 1847.
Paella.
Elbows.
Elbows is the right answer. That's brilliant.
You can't.
Elbows. Yeah.
I suppose because you're not supposed to use your hands in case of something.
That's it. But it's quite hard to get your... You have to be quite limber. Well, reasonably. Yeah, elbows. That was a piece of travelling. OK, the next one. Keep a spare jewel for emergencies in your...
Dog.
Dog. Would work. This is from a book called The Art of Travel or Shifts and Contrivances Available in Wild Countries by Sir Francis Galton.
This would be like, so you had some spare cash?
Yeah. It's, or a jewel, in fact, literally, to keep a spare jewel. Imagine you've been robbed. A highwayman or, well, no, it's in the 19th century, some sort of footpad.
In your shoe?
A shoe, they're probably looking at a shoe and a hat.
You like a hat there in your cheek?
In your cheek, no.
Your fundament?
In your ear?
stomach.
Up your nose?
Not in your stomach. The weird thing is it isn't an orifice.
Double chin.
Armpit. Oh,
No.
Under your eyelid?
No.
Your hair?
No.
Between your toes?
No. In your arm. Literally.
In your arm?
He recommends you make a cut prior to travelling. You push a jewel in and you sew it up and let it heal. And then when you are...
And a little bit of hash?
Maybe. Yeah. Beware the dirty habits of native cooks who will often be seen buttering toast with...
Earwax.
It's going to be something that isn't butter.
Yeah. The wings of birds, the wings of fowls, apparently. This is something you're warned against.
Using them to do the buttering?
Yeah, I think it's quite reasonable.
Do you mean actually what? So secreting a substance or
Greasy
just
wing?
a
The
butter?
greasy wing, I guess they would roast a fowl,
I
and
see.
greasy, or they'd use a live chicken and use it to butter bread with.
Live chicken?
It's
In the kitchen, they have a chicken whose only job...
I don't think butter on the toast. Tools do you need for do-nothing gardening?
No tools.
You think? It's also called natural gardening or natural farming. It's an Eastern version of our organic farming that has actually spread around the world.
You sort of have to dig with your hands
You-
or persuade other animals to do the gardening for you.
Yes, persuade other animals.
So you sort of persuade that a fox who doesn't want a sort of den, but a rockery.
Well, in the case of
Get
paddy
some
fields...
fish in and they desperately try and dig a pond before they die.
Well, fish is right. Well, in paddy fields, where, as I say, it started in the East, they use ducks instead of herbicide. They eat the weeds, the throttly things that kill the rice, and they use carp as well that helps purify and keep the water in the paddy fields good. Now, I've got some props for you, which is more connected with the principle of the gentleman gardener, which was a familiar 18th and 19th century pastime to be a gentleman gardener. You can have that or pass it on. There you are, and on your side, you've got props. Isn't it exciting to have props? Physical, actual props. There you are.
I can see where we're going with this.
Yeah. So who's going to go
Well,
first?
everybody's been given fascinating devices, and I've been given a bottle with the top cut off.
That was designed by George Stephenson of the rocket fame.
Was it?
The first locomotive, yeah.
And it's to do with the garden.
It is to do with the garden. He was a
what did-
very keen gardener.
What did he make most money out of? That or the...
I think
The train.
I think the train was a bigger hit.
Right.
But he was a very keen gentleman gardener.
I bet he was really tedious and wouldn't talk about the train in interviews and would insist on talking about his bloody...
I feel you're
In many
right.
ways, it's the work I'm proudest of. Yeah, but it's crap. It's just a bit of glass with no top.
Any
It would
thoughts
protect
at all?
some seedling or other.
So
lure
you've got
in
sunlight, I think, is an important
Yes.
factor here. The sunlight, because we've got glass. And what does glass do? It can magnify, Stephen, can't it?
Yes, it can.
Refraction with it, can't we?
Yeah, or
Okay.
refraction.
Refraction, whatever. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's not get bogged down in that.
Yeah, quite.
We're here to talk about gardening.
I'm silly, I'm sorry.
what's
oh,
he
hello. No, not... You found out... No,
It's a saw.
it is. It's for a gentleman gardener.
It's got a concealed serrated blade. You won't get this through customs. I could play with one of these. I can't make it work, though. Why won't it go forward? It'll only go that way.
Well, that's how you start the
That's how
stroke.
you start sowing.
It won't go back again.
Have you ever used a saw?
I don't think it's designed
Yeah.
for exercise books.
No, there is that too. David has a point. It's for the gentleman farm... No!
I want to saw something now. Yeah,
These
this
belong... I just want to say... These have been lent to us by the Garden Museum.
It works, it works.
Oh, it really does! Oh, my God!
I tell you what, I really wish they hadn't made this set out of asbestos.
Brilliant. That is...
That's a very good invention.
It's for the gentleman who's walking along and he sees an overhanging limb of a tree or overhanging limb of a person, for that matter, and decides to... Oh, no! What have I done? No! That's... Oh,
It's only plastic.
yeah. And see if you can tidy it away, class. See if you can do that. It's my clever psychology.
clever, isn't it?
Let's see if you're clever enough to hide that sword. Brilliant.
Well, that was great fun. You got any more?
No, well, David, you've got yours.
Yes, no, I don't know. I mean, it's like... it's
Yours actually is missing a piece. The Garden Museum, to whom we're very grateful for lending us these incredibly valuable artefacts, this would have had a sort of hat in order to make it like a walking stick, a sort of leathern thing around there.
Oh, so you could hold it like that?
You hold it as a walking stick, and then when you see some obtrusive weeds, you turn it around, and almost like a golf club, you...
Just a little hoe.
Yeah, you just hoe.
Yeah.
A little hoe. Yeah. Not in the street sense
No.
that's used in the United States of America.
Which is the sense I usually use that syllable in.
Yes, absolutely. So, talking of hoes, Rob.
It doesn't...
like that. Oh, hello.
Sorry, there was a fly landed on my buzzer, and I tried to use my little hoe.
My little hoe. It's a new sort of toy for children,
Yeah.
isn't it? So what's your little hoe for?
Well, I've absolutely no idea, other than I think it's something to do with light.
Well, it's not bad. Well, it actually forces a shape. What sort of shape would something in there have to be?
A bottle.
Oh, a vegetable.
It would have to be a straight vegetable, though, wouldn't it?
So
Is
it's for cucumbers.
For cucumbers, for growing straight cucumbers.
Points, and I've mended my walking stick.
Yes, points all round for Alan Davis. There you are.
Now, that thing up there, though, Stephen, it may well be for cucumbers, but that picture there is very similar to a spam email that I get sent. And I have to say, I'll tell you now, don't waste your money, it doesn't work.
Dara, what have you got?
I am guessing that you put a mixture of seeds in of different sizes, because there are little holes of different sizes, and then if you're the kind of person who knows what size seed you need, then you just sprinkle it.
You're
In the most
exactly-
effete gardening way imaginable. There you go. And we're in the company of which actual gardens would be going, oh, well done, my lord, that's really top quality gardening you're doing there.
I'm rather exhausted
it.
now. I think I may have to go in and have a cocktail.
I had a bit of the vapours from my gardening.
So, do nothing gardening, where we started, is small-scale organic farming with minimal input.
You know when you find a bee and it's crawling on its last legs,
I always rescue them.
you give it honey. It's the only thing they eat. Makes sense when you think about it. No point just talking to it, give it honey.
They're very much a one-recipe species,
All
aren't they?
I'm intrigued because I generally give it the sole of my shoe, but you know, not to be harsh, but you know, I think
Treading on a struggling, crawling bee, trying to get back to the hive.
What? As opposed to rehabilitate it?
I
nursing it
like
back
honey.
to
I have it
life.
on my porridge, you murderer.
Yeah, but
You depend on bees.
We need the bees.
okay. So in future, I should lure the bee back. And sorry, do I get a syringe of honey, just a tiny amount of honey? How do I feed
pipette.
this
Spoon of honey,
disabled
leave
bee?
it with the honey, don't tread on it. It should be
But-
criminal
but-
offence.
but-
You should be arrested. You should be locked up, you know where? In a hive.
But isn't it true, though, that a bee in his entire lifetime makes an absolutely tiny amount of honey overall? I mean, just a
But there are just
minute
lots
amount
of
of
them,
honey.
yeah, but
they're
So you
team
don't
players.
have to give much rehabilitating honey to this one bee
So
before the nation, the world, is making a net
diabetic.
loss from that bee. You know, it's useless. If you only get 1 teaspoon of honey from a whole bee's lifetime, and every time we have to get it back on its feet, it takes a teaspoon and a half, suddenly there's no honey at all.
This is more honey than this bee has seen in its life.
Yeah.
It's just gonna
You're insulting it, apart from
Maybe
anything
give
else.
it-
It's like showing a very tired mason a whole cathedral.
Maybe,
Well, let's say that you're in between Alan and Dara. So, like Alan, you want to help the bee give it honey, but like Dara, you also want to kill. What you can do is you get what I would term too much honey, and you see the bee, and you pour molten... But hear me out.
All right, okay.
And then you watch him die a slow... As
yeah,
he...
I carry on with... Yes, I've now heard you out.
Yes.
And that's no better.
Well, no, that's
worse. Much worse than what I did.
Torturing
You're
a
being
bee.
humane, are you?
Yeah, I am being-
You're not. You're getting a kick out of it.
Let's forget
I'm
that.
not drowning the bee ironically in honey. You want some honey?
bee.
You want some honey?
You can't
How much
drown
honey
them.
do you want? Is this too much honey? Yeah. Straight.
Oh, not so keen on the honey now, are you? After your lifetime making honey.
Very good. Well, thank you for that interesting, fierce, and I think productive debate. What does a robot jockey do?
Ah, yeah, these robot jockeys ride camels, don't they?
You are good, and you've already got the points.
Yeah, the robot jockeys, they're a form of racing in Dubai, in particular, and perhaps across
In the
whole
UAE, generally.
They have camel racing, and the camels, I think at that speed probably couldn't take human weight on them. They have to be quite small. So I am presuming at some stage they experimented with either
little people or with children.
Children.
Yeah.
It was reintroduced by King Fahd of Saudi Arabia in the 1970s, and children were indeed taken from their parents and were forced to be the jockeys on these camels.
What do you mean taken from their parents? People would just turn up at a random house?
I'm afraid, as you probably know, much of the service industries are performed by Sri Lankans and Indians. The Gulf Arab people themselves don't do much of the basic work, and it was Indian children who were taken to be jockeys. It was not a pleasant story, and there's no way of dressing it up nicely.
And how much control do they have over the camels exactly?
Well, they've got reins, and they also have GPS, so they know where they are. Now, you may say, why they put a face and a hat and costume on it. The fact is, the camels were spooked out when the robots just looked like machines. The camels were much more relaxed at the idea that it was a human on them, because they've sort of grown used to the idea.
Right.
So these only weigh a few kilos. They're not that expensive, about $500 each. They whip the camels by remote control, because the managers are following in a truck. So they do whip, I'm afraid. They're far lighter than the child jockeys, and I suppose it's less inhumane. They were designed in Switzerland.
Please, may I tell you the only camel joke that I know?
Please.
OK. There's two guys in the army out in the desert, and there's a new recruit, and there are no women around at all, and the new recruit says, what do we do for sex? And the old guy says, I'm afraid it's the camels. And so that evening, they're all let out towards the camels, and the old bloke's running really fast, and the young guy says, what are you doing? It's only a camel. And he goes, yeah, but you don't want to get an ugly one, do you?
So what are those camels we're looking at? What sort of camels are they?
I'm sorry. There is another camel joke. Sorry. Which is same starting point. Initially taken for the first couple of bits and said, oh, I'm afraid there are no women here. I'm afraid it's the camels. So late at night, the guy declares, I can't take it anymore. I'm as horny as hell. And he goes out and he rides the camel. And he comes back in and goes, well, that's the best we can do. And the man says, well, actually, when I said we've got the camels, we normally ride them into town.
Anybody else got any camel jokes? No. Excellent, excellent. Name a saint who comes from Ireland.
Patrick.
Oh! He went to Ireland, but he didn't come.
None of the patron saints of Britain are from where they're supposed to be from, are they?
George is Palestinian, St. George.
Yes.
Patrick is Welsh.
British, certainly. He came from around the River Severn area, apparently.
St. Bernard was from a shelter.
But you must be able to name some genuine...
St. Columkill, St. Bridget, St. Kevin.
St. Bridget. Do you know what her great miracle was?
She laid down a cape because she said, I want some land to build a convent. She said, well, you can have whatever land your cape covers. And she laid it down, and the cape grew like ginger beer in every direction. And so had taken over the entire field.
That is one of her great miracles. The other one was that she could transform her used bathwater into beer. Very Irish sort of miracle.
That one wasn't taught to us in primary school in Ireland.
Kevin?
Kevin lived halfway up a mountain in Glendalough in Wicklow and was like an Irish Francis of Assisi. Small animals would nest in his hand, and rather than crush the fecker and get on with his day, he would let the bird rest there and heal or whatever. And he'd go, please, I've got stuff to do. Do you want to bring up any more of these scars of my childhood? Right here.
It is astonishing to imagine an education like that.
I will say this for it. Like, I do remember once going out with a lady who was raised atheist, and an utter chore to walk around a gallery with. They go, who's the guy on the sticks? Is he the same guy who was in the shed earlier on?
Who is St. Bartholomew? Because I went in the museum in Venice, and there was a painting of him, and he's a spit of me. I was a spit of him. Anyway, it was a virtually full-size picture, and it was uncanny and a little bit frightening, because he was only wearing a nappy and he'd been shot with an arrow.
His day is the 24th of August, I know that. That's St. Bartholomew's Day. And there's obviously a famous hospital in London, St. Bartholomew's.
But he's probably the reason why they say always wear clean underwear if in case you're in an accident, because he had to go to A&E with an arrow and a nappy on. And to sit in the waiting
so
room.
long, they named the hospital.
After it.
Lord. There you are.
Well, a lot of them had arrows. St. Sebastian was a famous one to be shot with arrows.
Well,
but
maybe it was St. Sebastian, maybe it wasn't St.
There is a Mantegna St. Sebastian that does look not unlike you, it has to be said.
Do you know what? I think it might be St. Sebastian.
I think it was St. Sebastian. St. Bartholomew's death was that he was flayed alive, and most paintings of St. Bartholomew have him with his skin draped over his arm, his own skin.
No, that wasn't him.
That wasn't him.
So I've seen that statue in church. I always used to think when I was a kid that he just had a sort of beige-coloured coat.
His own skin. Anyway, the patron saint of Ireland went to Ireland but didn't come from there. He was kidnapped as a child, sold into slavery to Ireland. And then when he went on to the continent, became a monk, he wanted to come back to Ireland to convert to Christianity and cast out snakes. Tell me all about the 12 Frenchmen and the 12 mosquitoes. Dara, Briain.
Once upon a time, there were 12 Frenchmen called Happy, Sleepy, Arrogant, Furieux, des choses comme ça, bof, and Zutelor. That's 6. Fenêtre, Boulangerie,
Le Table.
Le Table, of course, and Jambon et Fromage, the twins. And they used to travel around with mosquitoes, solving adventures.
And what were the mosquitoes called?
Stingy.
It was a very, very low-rent 1950s French detective season that involved, at some point, the extraction of a tiny amount of blood from one of the suspects.
Do you know what else a mosquito can be other than a...
It was a World War II plane made out of wood.
Made out of wood, exactly, made out of balsa wood and plywood. What was their great raid?
Tuck shop.
I don't know, was it made into a film?
It was. They were 12 members of the Resistance, the Maquis, and they were due to be shot by the Gestapo. And the Allies would send in these 12 mosquitoes to bomb the chateau in Amiens, so all the prisoners would escape.
I can't believe that they just blow the bloody doors off.
Basically, that was
the whole place with 12 bombers.
You're right. What happened was they had to go down an avenue of poplars, which was so narrow they had to fly.
The poplars?
Yeah, but exactly like that. That's what you'll have to do. There were 700 prisoners in the prison. 102 were killed by the raid to start with. 74 were wounded.
Yeah.
Then 258 escaped, of which 179 were rounded up within the next few days by the Germans again.
My girlfriend's grandfather flew one of those, and he actually goes now and visits in Germany with a Luftwaffe pilot whose plane he shot down during the war. And they go and they sit around and, you know, go, ha, great days. But neither of them speak the other language. Like he doesn't speak German, the Luftwaffe doesn't speak English, but they sit there and...
Sit back.
Yeah. The temptation, if you're standing behind there...
And for over 50 years, that German man has been peeing in your granddad's tea.
We had an Airfix model of one of those. I gave it to my dad for his birthday, and he made it before breakfast.
You put the transfers on?
Yeah, painted it and everything.
Yeah.
That's a pain, because you had to put them in hot water and wait for them to slip off. And then, of course, with chubby 6-year-old fingers, you just end up covered in swastikas. It's not a good look, you go to school and they think you're in the BNP, and it's, no, I've been trying to make a hind call, sir.
What did Mussolini do?
Made the trains run on time.
No, he didn't. You could argue he made one particular train run on time. In 1922, there was a general strike in Italy, much to the annoyance of many Italian people, and certainly to the annoyance of the king, Umberto. And the fascists, led by Mussolini, were gathered in Naples, and Mussolini made his ferocious speech saying, we shall march on Rome, and we shall sort this out, we shall seize power if we're not offered it, and we shall end this strike. And it became, and Roma, 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 we shouted, and the famous March on Rome began. Mussolini himself went to Milan, didn't go on the march because he was rather scared. He was quaking in his jackboots. But it turned out to be a great success. And the king offered him power and said, you must get on the train from Milan, where he was, to Rome, and I will offer you the prime ministership. So he rang up the station master at Milan and said, this train has to run on time. And it was the one train he definitely made run on time. But all the other improvements in the Italian transport system were actually made before he came to power.
Garibaldi, that's a type of biscuit.
It's a type of biscuit.
It's a type of biscuit.
And it cracks. It's the difference. You can't crack a cake.
Good. Well, that's all very exciting. What did Prince Albert invent?
Oh, a cock ring.
Yeah.
The comb over.
There was bizarrely, there was something he actually did invent, which is not quite as intimate as the item of piercing jewellery that you referred to.
A cutlass.
No. He and Victoria married, they were very young, they were 20 years old, and she was very nervous, and she wrote a diary, as you may know, and it was quite an intimate diary, and she described the wedding night, the actual events, not the full physical details, but she described the experience as both gratifying and bewildering. Isn't that rather wonderful?
We've all been there.
So anyway, they enjoyed enough to have 9 children, and what he invented was a device that allowed them to lock the bedroom door from the bed, to give them marital privacy. Isn't that rather splendid?
Oh.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
Excuse me while I
Yeah. So, but he wore very tight trousers, and this myth grew up in the middle of the 20th century that he somehow anchored his penis to one side of his body or another by means of some sort of ring that was therefore able to pull it backwards so that it wasn't on show at parties because he was a Victorian and it would have been rude wearing such tight trousers. But there is no evidence for this. What is it that this flower behind me eats that Louis XIV ordered to be removed from the corridors of Versailles once a week?
Peasants.
Not peasants. You want to get a sense of the scale of the flower. That central bowl shape is about the size of a palm of a human hand.
Like a mouse.
Well, a mouse-like animal, that plant is a really extraordinary plant. It's a lavatory plant. It's a toilet seat. It looks like a toilet seat, toilet with a seat, a bowl, and that's what it is. It is an amazing achievement of evolution. It attracts a little shrew by giving out a sweet, buttery smell, and the shrew sits on it like that, and it has to face that way because that's where the smell is, and it can lick its nectar from there. And this shrew poos when it eats. it's its habit. So the poo goes into the plant and gives the plant about 70 to 100% of its nitrogen. So it's a fabulous system.
That shrew's going, do you have to take a photo now while I'm on the job?
But isn't that a pleasing way for a plant to develop?
So hang on, the thing that Louis had removed was poo, basically.
Yes, poo.
Yeah.
Once a week.
That's why he got the name Louis.
Once a week from Versailles in the corridors because he was a hygienic fellow.
Once a week.
Into these plants?
No. No, you weren't. No, never mind.
So that's just a coincidence?
Yes, it's a link.
What you've done is you've joined two things together.
A way of talking about a plant that's a lavatory and a way of saying that Versailles, which is one of the most elegant palaces in the world, in its day was full of people who'd never bathed and whose idea of hygiene was clearing poo from corridors once a week.
So it's human poo?
They're human poo?
Yes, human poo.
They just have a crap in the corner?
Basically.
Right. Just chatting away to a lady. Oh, mademoiselle de la Beauvoir de Verre. I manger... excuse me a minute. No, that was German. Qu'est-ce que vous allez à Versailles maintenant, s'il plus tard? They're not fanning themselves.
Say, when we broadcast this bit, can we get proper subtitles for what Sean just said?
It will be hard.
Yeah, I speak French. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good.
You so do. Well, yeah, I'm not quite sure necessarily in front of ladies like that, but the point is it's a very robust, non-bathy sort of place in which the poo piled up in corners.
They got gardens. It's famous for the gardens, Versailles.
Yes.
There's bloody gardens everywhere.
Not poo in the garden. Someone spent ages making it.
Yeah. The point is that toilet bowl-shaped Nepenthes iowiwi lives primarily on shrew feces. The French in Louis XIV's time weren't keen on washing, but drew the line at leaving piles of excrement around the house for more than a week or so. What does the Queen do after Christmas lunch?
That's what everyone else does during the Queen's speech.
Do they?
They go for a walk. They go to church.
No, they go to church in the morning, definitely, St Mary Magdalene in Sandringham. But they've furnished us with remarkable details, I have to say, the royal family.
Does that mean that somebody from the office is going to be tuning in to see how these details were handled?
Yes.
And they're likely to be thrilled at the sensitive way in which the Queen's Christmas Day has been described.
So far, that's why I've been wriggling slightly. But just to get it out of the way, the answer is she goes into the saloon and watches herself on television. On Christmas Eve, right, they gather in the White Drawing Room at Sandringham around a 20-foot Christmas tree cut from the Sandringham estate. And I want to add here, at the risk of being booed, that I get my tree from the Sandringham estate. It's decorated by the Queen herself.
What, your tree?
My tree, no.
Did she come round to do it? I bet you send her out in the garden. No, do it out in the garden.
At 5 p.m, the whole family has a cup of Earl Grey, except the Queen, who has her own Indian blend.
Is it Twinings?
I hope so. This is turning into a massive embarrassment all round. They have sandwiches, cakes and scones. At 6 p.m, they open presents. This is Christmas Eve, remember. Why do they open presents on Christmas Eve?
Because they're all f***ing mad.
No, because they're all f***ing German. It's a German tradition. Well, there you are. The Queen gives the signal. They give each other practical presents, it turns out. The Queen is said to have been delighted...
With a gun.
Oh, that's bloody brilliant! No, with a casserole dish and a gift-wrapped washing-up apron.
I think it's one of those ones with tits on it.
After dinner, after Christmas Eve dinner, the Queen and the other female royals leave the room with the corgis. Prince Philip then serves port... Prince Philip then serves port or brandy to the male members of the royal family.
Oh, for God's sake.
Right. Well, that's tradition. It's tradition.
They're wearing only loincloth.
Exactly. If I told you this about an Aboriginal tribe, you'd say, oh, how interesting. So it's tribal behaviour, that's all. It's interesting, I think. They get stockings on Christmas morning.
Philip gets stockings.
No.
Serving the brandy.
No, this is next morning. They all have at the foot of their bed.
He wears them all night.
The family pulls crackers, but the Queen refuses to wear her paper party hat. And then at 3 p.m, they go to the saloon to watch me on Christmas Day. We love them all and we wish them well at this Christmas time. What happened, this is my question to you, what happened to 3/4 of the people accused of witchcraft in England?
Drowned, burned, killed.
We were much gentler than you might think. They were acquitted.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that sending the wrong message to witches, essentially?
We were apparently rather resistant to the idea of destroying witches in England, and unlike views espoused in so-called books, and I use the word book very loosely, like the Da Vinci Code. It is complete loose stool water. It is arse gravy of the worst kind. Anyway.
He's a blues singer.
Please welcome Loose Stool Water. Very good. Excellent. Well, that particular panful of that material did claim that about 5 million women were burned or hanged around Europe for being witches. There's absolutely no evidence there's anything like as much as that. Probably about 500, probably less in England. And they weren't burned, they were hanged.
The lawyer would have said, maybe not go to court dressed like that.
Yeah. 2 possibly burned. That's the only evidence that 2 were burned. The rest were hanged, probably about 400 or 500 at the most. There are lots of Hammer films. The Devil Rides Out and those kind of things. Usually Peter Cushing, and sometimes, if you were very lucky, they would have Charles Grey in a huge white smock. What is the collective noun for a group of baboons? Yay.
The Pentagon.
Fantastic. Oddly enough, American politics has a lot to do with it, and not only is the Pentagon an organ of American power, but so is their House.
Capitol Hill, the White House.
The House is known
the
as...
House of Representatives.
It's the Congress.
The Congress.
It's a Congress.
It's a Congress of baboons.
Yeah, but the reason we asked the question is...
Congress of baboons.
Very good. But there is a quite interesting fact about a new word that is beginning to replace Congress, and it has a very odd history, this word. It comes from a comedy sketch on BBC television in a series called Not the 9 O'Clock News. There was a sketch called Gerald the Gorilla, in which Rowan Atkinson played it. And
Wild.
He makes mention, that's right, Wild, I was furious, exactly, the production on that album. But, there's a point where he talks about a group, or flange, as we call them, of gorillas. And this was just made up by Richard Curtis, or whoever wrote the sketch, that particular sketch. But it's now on the net. And there is, I can quote you here from a book called Sex and Friendship in Baboons by Barbara B. Smuts. This is a review.
He's read every book in the world.
This is a review at Amazon.com, and it's a serious academic study, and it says, in this marvellous book, Smuts draws from years of painstaking field research in which he followed around a flange of Chacma baboons in the Muteti Game Reserve in Zimbabwe. And a word has migrated from a comedy sketch into the internet and is now being used by academics as the official word. And while on the subject of animals, who can tell me which mammals have the most bones in their noses? Yep. Alan.
Crocodiles.
It isn't crocodiles, as it happens.
I was going to say elephants, but I think it's really stupid.
Thank you. Oh, bless you for that.
Anteaters.
I did it to please the researcher.
Did you say anteater?
Yes.
Well, the answer is an anteater, so you should have some points. Particular kind, probably the most famous kind of anteater in some ways.
Aardvark.
Aardvark is the right answer. It has 9 or 10.
Do you know, I can say in Danish, I have spilt coffee on the anteater.
I would like you to do that for us now.
Jeg har spildt kaffe på møreslør.
What quite interesting object is at the very end of the Earth?
Telford Town Centre. Although I would argue about the interesting bit.
At the bottom of Patagonia?
It's right down there, yes. It's the southern pole of inaccessibility.
Is it the off switch?
To stop it spinning.
Plug hole.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's most unusual. It's a bust.
There's a bust.
There's a bust.
Oh, worth going then.
Yeah. In the sense not of a pair of breasts, but in the sense of a sort of head and shoulders and front bit of a human being.
No, we didn't really think there was a big pair of tits.
It's of a living 20th century person, now dead.
A man.
Yeah.
Stalin.
Oh, the one before.
Lenin.
Vladimir Ilyich Lenin is there, right in the middle.
My
It's just
word.
bizarre. This southern pole of inaccessibility is more remote and hard to reach than the geographical South Pole. And in this very year, the destination was reached by a team of 4 Britons called Team N2I. Rory Sweet, Rupert Longston, Henry Cookson and Paul Landry. And we have one of this expedition in the audience. Mr...
Is it Lenin?
No. Mr. Rupert Longston is here. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that bizarre? Phenomenal. Rupert, how far did you actually have to travel? Because this was no mechanical power, was it?
No mechanical power. We travelled 1,100 miles in total. Some of it was cross-country skiing and then kite skiing.
Was it cold?
When that picture was taken, I think it was minus 60 degrees Celsius.
What did you eat?
Food was...
Food.
fairly repetitive. It was chocolate, cheese, salami, pasta, lots of it. And one day towards the end, when we'd been eating the same thing for about 40 days, we played laxative roulette. And with one person who had laxatives in their food, we didn't know who.
Well, I bet you did.
Not straight away. The consequences were quite obvious after a while.
Does it freeze as it comes
Oh!
out? Does it offer a shard of shit?
When did the Russians put that there?
1958.
Good Lord. Rupert Longston, congratulations on doing an extraordinary first and being very, very foolhardy and very brave and very brilliant.
Clearly not extraordinary first. There was a statue there when they
No.
arrived.
They went under their own power. No one had ever done that before. Congratulations. Thank you very much, Rupert. Thank you. That's amazing.
I like the idea of that, though, the idea of going and doing that with no mechanical device whatsoever. His moon mission's going to be amazing. Give me a man up a ladder going, oh, this is madness.
What was a really horrible way of transporting smallpox vaccine?
Was it by Marty Feldman?
God bless him, I remember that scene so well, don't you?
You mean now, when are they transporting smallpox?
No, now you would transport smallpox.
You infect an animal and then you transport the animal and then you take...
You've got the right principle. It's actually not an animal, though.
People?
A rock. You infect a rock.
No, a human.
A volunteer prisoner.
A human child, an orphan.
An orphan?
Yeah.
It's got no one to tell.
Yeah. You go back to the early 19th century, vaccination has been discovered. We know about vaccination.
Cowpox.
Cowpox, exactly. Edward Jenner discovered that if you injected people with cowpox, they would be immune to smallpox. A smallpox which killed about 60 million people in the 18th century. It was a really terrible disease. Now, in about 1803, the King of Spain, whose son had died of smallpox, thought, we want to vaccinate everybody in South America. But how do you get the vaccine in a ship for months? You haven't got ice packs. You know, it's 1803. So you round up a few orphans and you inject one orphan with the vaccine and he develops the immunity and his blood is full of the antibodies and it's all great. So you take his blood and you put it in the next one and the next one until you've got a whole colony of orphans who are not harmed because they are immune to smallpox, but it means you can use them as a kind of serum, if you like. It's kind of creepy.
They're not harmed, but they're quite a long way away from home.
Yeah, that's the one trouble, is they find themselves in the middle of the jungle. The British, I'm afraid, we did it too. We did it with low-caste Indian boys. It's a pretty squalid thing to do, but it did work. It saved hundreds of thousands of lives, but, as you say, at the expense of some rather bewildered Spanish orphans.
Yeah, but presumably they weren't brought there and then summarily killed.
No, not killed, but they were just left there, presumably. I mean, they were orphans anyway, so you may say maybe they wouldn't have had that good a future in Spain in 1803. Yeah. So maybe their lives went well for them in South America. Who knows?
Too late now, anyway. Nothing we can do about it.
No, there isn't. You're right. Yeah. But we can we can think about them. We can give this little pause and
don't worry about
honour them.
Don't forget about it. Let's move on.
So, what about smallpox today? Is it a worry?
Yes.
How so?
Because it's really the orphans.
You care so much about.
The orphans of great dynasties. Who are coming back to attack us.
No. It came that close to being the very first disease that humankind completely got rid of, in the sense that there was not one vial or test tube left of it in the world. And then they thought again in about 2002 and said, well, maybe we don't really have the right actually to extinguish it from the face of evolution. So there is somewhere a tiny amount of it left.
Is there not a fear? Is it? I would have thought that they might keep it to develop a vaccine in the event that, I don't know, North Korea had kept hold of some smallpox.
Well, that's also possibly it. You're absolutely right. It may just be that they can't risk the possibility that somebody else has it, and that's human nature. But it's...
I'm sorry, this feels like we're in the opening scene of an apocalypse movie or something.
Yeah. Doesn't life often feel like
chatting
that?
About...
But don't worry, it's in this test tube. Nothing can...
And of course, it was so virulent in the 18th century, and people knew that it was contagious, that actually you were much more likely to get a job if you were pockmarked.
Because you'd actually had the
Because
disease.
it showed that you'd had it. So servants and things who were unblemished were unlikely to get a job because it's possible they would catch it and pass it on in the family. Anyway, smallpox vaccine was transported to the New World by successively infecting a series of small boys and then dumping them in South America when they weren't needed anymore. What makes Australian spiders so dangerous?
It's their cunning and their organisation, Stephen. And the fact they're willing to put the man-hours in. They will stalk you for weeks. They'll look for patterns in your behaviour, and they'll strike when you least expect it. Just as you're hovering over a poorly bee, holding a shoe high, that's when they'll come and bite you in the bum.
You mean the spider is working with the bee?
Yes. The bee is saying, there's not much longer left for me, but you can have a bit of fun here. Come on. come in and bite him.
So is it that they sort of hide in loos?
Well, not deliberately, but the only real danger they seem to threat these days, since 1981, when anti-venoms were introduced all around Australia, there are two very poisonous types. There's the redback and the funnel web, the famous
Redback's
funnel web.
people's reaction.
There's the redback.
Is it the way that people...
Yeah, that no one has died from a spider bite since 1981.
Yeah.
No one in Australia. But people have been in accidents, which have been fatal, some of them, and some have caused enormous damage from spiders that have dropped out of sun visors in cars and fallen on people, and they go like that, and then crashed. So that's their danger now, oddly enough, not their venom. This Manneken Pis is the symbol of Brussels, of course. Sometimes they dress her up, or him up, I should say, as Elvis, and sometimes it peas beer. What's it all about?
I've seen it. It's the most unimpressive thing, apart from that mermaid in Copenhagen, which is also shite. It's all these signs, and it's just it's like yay big. In the
Here we are. I've got a model of it.
And it's actually not that scaled down. That
In theory, this is a working one, I believe. That's pretty good, isn't it? How's that? We like. Very nice indeed.
He's drinking piss!
It's good enough for Sarah Miles, it's good enough for me. There is a theory...
Anything to do with elephants?
Oh, interesting. No. But it's good that you're thinking. One of the theories is that Brussels was under siege and the enemy were laying explosives around the city walls, and a little boy saw this and peed on the fuses, thus saving the city, and so he's memorialised.
I did that once and blew the electricity in the house.
There's another theory that it was the 2-year-old Duke Godfried and his troops put him up in a tree when they were having a battle in a basket, and from there he urinated on the enemies and they lost the battle. That was in 1142.
They stuck the crown prince or whatever in a tree that was just like the enemies were just underneath the tree. Threw a rock at the tree, right?
How long has that statue been there? Do you know?
200 years. 120 years. 90 years.
That's the point. It's a lot older than you might think. It's 14th century. 1388 there's been a pissing boy.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Still works.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I get up there with a pipe cleaner every Sunday.
It's been stolen 7 times.
7 times?
7 times. In 1817, one of the thieves who stole it got 20 years hard labour. In 1978, they got let off with a warning.
No one ever gets 20 years easy work, do they? It's all the labour's hard labour.
Yes.
Don't say hard labour, it's just rubbing it in. We know it's labour, you know.
Yeah, it's never exactly.
Not saying 20 years
20
temping.
Working in a call centre.
Yeah.
So, nobody knows for sure why Brussels chooses to identify with an incontinent 5-year-old. Bon chance to them, however. I'm holding a pen, that brings me cleverly to the Fisher pressurised space pen, of which you may have heard tell. It was developed after a lot of expensive research to enable astronauts to write in 0 gravity. What alternative writing implement could they have used instead?
Here comes the big noise. A pencil.
Yeah. There is a kind of urban myth that the Americans spent millions on building a pressurised, gravity-free biro while the clever Russians just used a pencil. But in fact, they started off, both of them, using pencils, and the tip broke. And when the tip breaks, it floats around and it gets into short circuits, things gets into people's eyes and bodies. It's very dangerous indeed.
Oh, but what a laugh that must be to have a pencil sharpener on the space shuttle.
So it's sadly not true, that story. An ordinary biro would have worked. You didn't need a special pressurised one. You need to write upside down. It needs to be pressurised when there's gravity, but when there's no gravity, an ordinary one will work. So describe, if you can, in detail, the world's most exotic tax inspectors.
Not the ones who brought me into Balham once to...
Were you once given a right going over?
We were given a right going over, yeah.
Were you?
I'd taken tax advice from Harry Hill, so it was my own fault. He used to be a doctor, so I thought he knew what he was talking about.
I once spent 3 days with a tax inspector going through, honestly, every single decimal point of everything, and after 3 days he didn't find anything, and he said to me, "To be honest, Miss Toxvig, I just wanted to meet you."
Wow!
I know. I wanted to...
Was either of them exotic? Did they have a flowery tie or anything about them?
Is it going to be one of those tax haven-y things?
No, it's not a tax haven thing. We're in the Middle East. We're in an Islamic country where people will be very embarrassed by a certain type of person, a transgender person.
Oh.
And in Pakistan, they have a squadron of transgender tax collectors who come basically to embarrass people into paying.
They go, hiya!
Well,
you all right?
First of all, you go to the shop and say, you owe us this much in tax, and they will simply say, we refuse to pay. And they say, OK, then tomorrow we will send in a group of transgender tax collectors who will dance and sing in your shop until you pay.
The crying game.
But only 5% of people pay tax in Pakistan, don't they?
Well, that's why...
So it's not working, is
There's
it?
only so many transgender people in tax. They're very busy. They're belting it, I am what I am, in shops over there.
Well, there is quite a transgender, I suppose one would use the word community, in Pakistan, and they have obviously had it very tough, especially in the more extremist parts of that country where such things are frowned upon. But they are classed together with transvestites and eunuchs, and there's a special word for them which is hijra.
But how extraordinary for a mother. She sees her son putting on her high heels, and immediately she looks at him now and thinks, tax inspector.
Yes, I know. It is. It's a glamour profession now.
I have to do this, Mother. I'm a tax inspector.
It may well happen.
Nothing else is going on.
Are you wearing that dress this evening?
But there you are.
What would we do here? Morris dancers, I think. That would, outside your shop.
That
would make... I'll pay. I will pay, yes.
Basically, the governments of the world are looking for imaginative solutions to raise and, their taxes. And that is one, using transgender people in Karachi. You're looking astonished.
I'm totally astonished.
Yeah.
This is boggling. It's brilliant.
So while living in Pakistan, was there any point at which Osama bin Laden didn't pay his taxes and was in danger of 4 transgender people knocking the door of his massive compound?
No wonder he was hiding.
Really?
I wonder what that man does for a living. What's he done? The whole conversation. 4 of them turned up.
Yeah, 4 of them going through his papers, as you can see.
You come for my tax? I sold you that scarf.
I think that's a counterfeit designer bag that she's wearing as well. I suspect it isn't real.
He's going to get the hit squad.
Yes, he's going to get the full show.
Yep.
Here come the girls.
We are the hit squad. We are the hit squad, and the first hit will be Shares, I believe.
Now, according to the feminist novelist and journalist Dame Rebecca West, the main difference between men and women is that men are lunatics and women are idiots. Joe, what would you say is, in fact, the main difference between men and women?
Is it that men are really great and women are really shit?
Oh, no, Joe, how is that?
Sorry, that's the wrong way round. I think it's that men are rubbish at multitasking and women are very good at it. What it's about, though, I think, is the fact that if you ask a man to do something, he does it so horrendously thoroughly that he can't do anything else at the same time. This is my husband the other week. Can you hoover the front room while I'm at the shops, right? And I came back, all the furniture was out in the garden. He's on his hands and knees with a hoover, using an attachment I've never even seen before. And it just leads me to think that men are probably actually much better at housework than women.
Yeah.
Because women are sluts and people don't realise that we are. No, we are. I've got a pilot ready for a TV show, which is actually about the truth of women's domestic capabilities, and it's called F*** It, That'll Do.
It's a very good answer indeed.
The actual thing as well is that, in fact, every woman in the world has got bird flu, but we don't give a shit because we just get on with our lives. And it's only because a few men have caught it lately that people are going mad about it. So we're like, oh, I've got bubonic plague, but I've still got to do the hoovering. Do you know what I mean?
This women's greater tolerance of pain thing is because, obviously, of childbirth, and frankly, it's completely untested because we could be brilliant at it.
I'm quite prepared like to do an experiment on you?
I've got very disappointing news for you, Dara, which is that women have twice as many pain receptors on their skin.
Thus making them more...
Supposedly, they are more sensitive to pain than men.
There was an experiment once run by the kind of people who run fun experiments like this, to test this notion of whether women can endure pain or not, by the simple expedient of wiring a man and a woman up and running a current through them until one of them pressed that button to stop it. And the women went for the... much faster than the men did. It turns out that men could endure pain twice as long as women did.
But then maybe they're only getting half as much pain, as I say, because women have 2.5 times more pain receptors. But do you know what the originating and defining difference is?
Presumably it's a chromosome.
It's the chromosomes.
Yeah.
Do you know how they're arranged?
There's X and Y. And Y is useless. And we have a Y, and you have 2 X's, which is why women are twice as varied in personality and physique than men are, which is why men are broadly all borderline autistic and are easily unified behind one thing. Oh, did you watch the match? And the entire woman goes, yes, I did, actually watch that, yeah. It doesn't, however, mean that women within themselves are fantastically varied. It just means that one woman is more different from the next woman.
Is that why women are congenitally unable to explain the offside rule?
Essentially, yes.
Is that a sort of subsection?
Since they changed it, quite a lot of men are struggling.
I think I recognise some of those spells.
Yes, fundamentally, the difference is Y chromosomes. Sociologically, who can say it? What do jockeys use their whips for?
Hit me!
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Do they have whips, or are they not called crops?
A riding crop is a whip, so that's not...
Well, recently, they have decided that they can only use the whip, I believe, on the flat 8 times, and in the final furlong, if they use it more than 5 times, they forfeit their portion of the win, if they do in fact win.
Wow, this is very impressive. For all I know, you're right.
Yeah,
I know that in Britain, if you use your whip more than 8 times, there is almost always going to be a steward's inquiry.
It's only if you use it on the horse. I mean, if you're hitting yourself...
Yeah, I was taking that as read.
Yeah. Is he being lowered on like the old kings used to do?
That is Frankie Dettori's signature leap from the saddle.
You know he's wearing Arsenal colours there because
he's
an Arsenal fan.
Oh, is that the reason?
I made that up.
No, of course it is. He wears the colours of his owner.
It's some sort of encouragement to the horse to run, you know.
You used a very important word, encouragement, because, of course, naturally the RSPCA and those who care for animals are not particularly, frankly, pleased by the sight of animals being hit for sport. They don't find it acceptable.
Quite a weapon when you see it close up.
It's a heck of a thing, but there's been a study by the RSPCA at Sydney University. They found that whipping does not have the effect of horsing a speed up. Speeding a horse up. These glasses...
I don't mean all street on you there, but when you horse your speed up, it does take... it's when you get your methamphetamine to mix heroin in with it. That will make you run.
What have you done with Stephen Fry?
All right, OK, let me start that again. They found that whipping does not, in fact, have the effect of speeding a horse up. The RSPCA claims this settles the case against whipping. The study's been criticised by racing authorities. They say it's too small a cohort of testings, only 48 horses in 5 races, etc. According to jockeys, speed is not the main purpose of the whip. The main uses are safety of both horse and jockey, stopping the horse from veering, losing balance, backing off from a jump, or prompting it to change the length of its stride. They're never allowed to use it to coerce the horse. The other is precisely the word you used, encouragement, which obviously the animal lobby says, come on, that's just a euphemism for coercion.
Yes, it'd be delightful if you could run just a tiny bit faster now. This race is almost at an end.
I think we've all seen horses being enthusiastically encouraged in the last furlong of the race.
If you're in a race in which you have somebody alongside you, like at a parents' day for school, right?
Egg and spoon.
Oh, no, more the 3-legged one, where you've got somebody with you. If one of the people had a whip and felt that you were lagging and other parents were beating you and then whipped you, your motivation wouldn't be to run. It was to stop whipping me, you prick. Yes, yeah, and also the notion that, you hit me in the bum, therefore I will be propelled forward as opposed to reacting, veering off, randomly finding out what
I was caned in prep school and I never won a single race. It was terrible.
Did you? You see, they whipped you every day.
They whipped me every day.
Did they whip you during the races? Because that would have been an impressive prep school thing if they let you start, if they gave you a head start and then ran after you with the cane.
It would be a five-legged race.
I'm not saying that
when you say a three-legged race, you're thinking of two people, but what we're talking about here, Dara, is horses.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't saying that the last time I went to a school sports day, I brought a horse in an effort to win the three-legged race. Nobody sussed it.
I would love to see that.
Have you let my delightful wife, Juniper?
It's merriness at Christmas. Tell me about champagne. Who invented it?
The French. In the Champagne region.
No, they didn't. The grape came from Champagne, the Champagne region. Are they Belgian? They were not the ones who invented it.
Belgian monks? Germans.
No.
English.
Yes, English. Just got there first.
It was by accident. It was by accident because there was something wrong with the bottle and the wine went fizzy and they liked it.
No, this was the myth that the French put out in the 19th century about Dom Perignon. Oh. They claimed that by accident it went fizzy and he said, come in, everybody, I'm drinking the stars. And it's all absolute bollocks. It was the 16th century the British started importing this green flat wine from the Champagne region and they added sugar and molasses to make it sparkle. What makes ginger beer goes very fizzy. This culture, you know.
I'm sorry. Who among this table has ever made ginger beer?
Yes, thank you. A surprising ally. And it multiplies, doesn't it? You can't get rid of the stuff. It's a culture, like yogurt. So when
they should have a ginger beer episode on Doctor Who because it takes
they're like
over
aliens.
the planet. I made vodka as well.
Moscow mules.
Yes, ginger beer and vodka. You could have made your own Moscow mules.
Oh, bollocks.
That's a fine drink. Anyway, it's 3 times more pressure than in a car tyre inside a bottle of champagne. So you need a very strong glass, and the British had the technology by that time, 16th, 17th century we're getting to. And we had quite good corks. But Dom Perignon invented the wire cage to go over the cork, and he also did the blending. Do you drink it?
No, Guinness.
Do you drink it?
A Guinness? No. I've served it a few times, know how to pull it correctly, which is a piece of information that hasn't transferred over here at all. You have to let it sit, you have to let it go black, and then you have to push it back so no more gas goes into it. 5/12 of an inch is the ideal head around the top. And if somebody paints a shamrock into it, you're allowed to stab them in the eye with a fork.